Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 2 in Boston begins today. All the teams, I believe, have finally arrived here in Boston. Actually, they should be able to play their matches today. Some big updates from the CDL side though on where Major 4 and Champs is potentially going to be. And also Dashy with some mega gas for Shotzzy going into a very important weekend for OpTic Texas. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Plenty to dive into ahead of the day. We've got to talk about this community update first of all. Now, I mean, they did this in person, which is kind of cool here, but I don't really understand why they did this, given the fact that there was basically no update to bring. They didn't really give any updates on challenges. They said they were going to give updates on Major 4 and Champs, and what they said in both cases was like, yeah, we kind of don't really have any updates yet. So I feel like they should have maybe postponed this until they actually had something to say, but regardless, we did get some rumours coming out of JKPL and Deserto as to exactly what is going on here. Kind of aligned to what we talked about yesterday, but yeah, Daniel Sai confirms the CDL is still assessing options for where Major 4 will take place. If a team had have stepped in and said, hey, we'll do it, then I think it would probably have been settled by now. The fact that that hasn't happened means that a team probably isn't in a position to do so, which is understandable to be fair, because obviously New York pulled out of doing Major 4, and therefore maybe Minnesota, maybe Seattle, other organizations. But I mean, a lot of the time these events, I think it probably cost the organizations more money than they gain. They need to have all the sponsors aligned and all this type of stuff to actually make it worthwhile. And making something like that happen relatively last minute is just probably not going to be the case for a lot of these organizations. So the CDL will probably have to do it themselves to a certain extent. There is some concern here that it might be done at least without spectators, maybe even online. I mean, online is like, there's absolutely no way they could possibly do that, surely. So, I mean, look, there's some rumors as to where it might be. Possibly no spectators. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being like a pro-am type thing they did last year when it's just a small venue with no crowd and stuff like this. It's going to be a bit of a shambles if that's the case, but, you know, better than online at least, I suppose, if no organization wants to actually step in it and take over to host it. The Champs location is also not yet ironed out, but I believe, and the rumors certainly imply, that it's probably going to be Vegas. And yeah, we'll see how this one kind of goes out here. But just before this went live, actually, JKPL came out with this from Deserto and saying that their sources have confirmed they're targeting Columbus for Major 4. That's kind of where they used to hold a lot of the MLG stuff. And then Las Vegas for CoD Champs. So, I mean, yeah, I guess the CDL hasn't officially confirmed it and got it locked in. We usually don't even get the Champs location for quite some time anyway. But yeah, probably Vegas. I think that's pretty cool. I know that a lot of people kind of got fed up of it being in LA every single year. So if I think Vegas is a nice change there, would be a cracking event as well. But yeah, the fact that we're not going to get Major 4 in New York and it's going to be like some small event in Columbus is unfortunate. But this is better than online at the very least. But still, the CDL don't have any official confirmation on that side yet. So yeah, maybe Major 4 Ohio. We will stay tuned on that one, as the flags say right here. Also wanted to mention on the pro side, because some of them, at least most of them, have finally arrived. I know a lot of these guys, they got here and their bags either still aren't here or certainly weren't here yesterday. A lot of them had to go to the local Target to actually get some clothes. Like an absolute disaster, honestly. Especially given that it's not exactly warm here in Boston right now, and it certainly won't be over the next couple of days. So yeah, layers are necessary, and these guys obviously had a bit of a difficult time. So Don was here, Temp, Prolute, Mack and Simp, of course, watching the Boston NBA game last night, and this I thought was an absolute violation. But this guy, you forgot to tag Clayster, and Clay replies, okay, what is going on there? Speaking of Clay, actually, yeah, he was one of the guys that turned up at the venue yesterday, and I think had just been to Target, or maybe the night before got to Target or something, to get some clothes. Obviously a bit of a nightmare, right, with the storm they're having in Texas and the difficulties of getting flights out. I don't also know Scump's status right now, because he's meant to be traveling out, I'm guessing, yesterday or something. The OpTic guys thankfully did make it. I did see all the OpTic guys yesterday, and like Surge and everything, they were scrimming on main stage, so that entire team is there. But also the teams that arrived later, they get less practice time. Like this practice on LAN before the matches start is actually quite valuable. Teams like the subliners that have just arrived, basically, they won't really get any of that before their first match of the day, so they're going to have to be ready very quickly indeed, whereas Rokkr have been here for a little bit of time. Another thing that was mentioned on the flank, actually yesterday while I was on it briefly, while Scrappy was here, they were discussing the loudness equalization that has been kind of ruining online search and destroy now, where you can just hear everything. There's been some rumors actually that some players have been using this secretly for a couple of years now, and it hasn't really been talked about until now, which makes sense because this setting's been around for quite some time. Now, I think you can probably still do it online, and even Standy was saying, well, he uses it, because if others are going to use it, then I might as well. Scrappy was saying he doesn't use it at all, and now on LAN here, the CDL are going to block this from being used on the PCs. So there might be an element, we'll stay tuned to see if there's anything like this happening, but you know, at the start of the season, there was the whole M4 merchants thing. I wonder if there's going to be any element here where potentially there's some soundness equalization merchants that get exposed this weekend if it's going to get disallowed by the CDL and blocked on these PCs. So I think that's quite an exciting prospect. And good job for the CDL to actually figure that out. We discussed it the other day. It can't be too hard to disable a setting like that from being changed on the league PCs at the actual venue, so apparently they're going to take a step to do exactly that. Now we've got to talk about another clip from this Dashy episode because it was such a mega one that there's so many good things to dive into here, but one of the ones that I wanted to look at was because Formal said a very similar thing on Shotzzy the other day. He was talking about Rambo and talking about the coaching situation and saying, look, you don't tell Shotzzy how to play the game. This guy is next level in his understanding of things, and while he might not necessarily be able to articulate it so well, his understanding of Call of Duty and FPS games in general is just different level, and that's what Formal said. And Dashy echoes a similar sentiment here, and he says, yeah, look, Shotzzy is just one of the smartest CoD minds that he's ever seen play the game. It's kind of interesting, right, because Shotzzy obviously, as X goes on to say, has this reputation as a bit of an airhead sometimes, but when he's actually in the game, Dashy reckons he understands the game at a different level. And obviously also in this episode there was the discussion from Hex we talked about yesterday. Dashy's now the leader of this team, going to be taking this team along to the next level, but surely Shotzzy's going to be there as well. So that's the thing to me, that iLLeY and Huke, I don't think their spots are guaranteed, and maybe OpTic again find themselves in a spot where there are a couple of players here that are a bit undroppable, right, because of course you can't drop Scump in the previous iteration. Now you can't really drop Shotzzy, or well, you can drop Dashy, they've done it twice, but apparently they're not going to drop him anymore.
And I know that a lot of people get Shotzzy a lot of how do I say this? They tease Shotzzy a lot for being a little bit of an airhead sometimes. Yeah. Dude's 19 years old. No, name. I mean, obviously besides me, name even Scump at 17, 18, 19. That dude was aloof all the time, right?
A lot of people give Ant like a lot of for, like you said, being an airhead, aloof or whatever. But I actually think that kid's really smart. He just doesn't know how to like articulate it, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's kind of like me in a way where he knows what is going on, what's happening. For example, in the game, like I think he's one of the smartest players, smartest COD minds that's ever played, but he just doesn't know how to not know, you know what I mean? But he just isn't as good now. He's definitely going to learn it for sure, but just like describing it, articulating, just going into details about stuff, but that kid's different.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about this, right? I thought it was interesting that Formal said this the other day, and then Dashy kind of, echoed it, right? Because obviously when you hear Shotzzy talk about Call of Duty and this type of stuff, like, you know, the way he articulates things isn't always Albert Einstein level analysis. But according to these guys that have played with him a fair bit over their career, or at least have been on the same organization for some time, they know that Shotzzy just understands the game differently. I know there's been some criticism of Shotzzy lately as well about the fact that maybe he uses the movement too much on occasion, all this type of stuff. So yeah, intrigued to your thoughts on that in the comment section below. But speaking of OpTic, they did successfully arrive here in the venue this weekend. It's an interesting weekend for them because their next major, well, it's their home major next time out at Major 3. I think they'll certainly intend to at least get to the Championship Sunday here. They'll have to take down LA Thieves in the very first series if they want to make that happen here, more than likely, rather than making the losers bracket run, which is possible, but of course, going to be challenging to accomplish, certainly playing Dave Paddy in the first round of losers if that was to be the case. But this is the latest that we have from Scump here. Travel situation is insane. Flight yesterday cancelled, flight today cancelled, now driving to Austin to hopefully have a chance of getting there. Sender says been at Dallas Fort Worth for 24 hours. I believe that finally subliners arrived because a lot of the OpTic guys, the Surge guys, the Minnesota guys, all these like teams that are out of there in Texas and Clayster as well, they did successfully make it on some flight. Bit of a shambles, Seattle as well, even though I think I mentioned them. New York subliners though, they weren't on the flight in time, or they were on a different flight or something, and Sender was having a bit of a nightmare. And then Priester says just last night, still at an airport and got the first match tomorrow. Now I think maybe he was talking about a different airport, say maybe the Boston airport, right? I don't know, because shortly after that he said we arrived in Boston, so maybe he was on a flight or something. The flight should be longer than this, who knows? But anyway, they made it in time and they're now probably there at the venue ready to go today. The difficulty is though, as I say, the practice quality they will have is not exactly ideal, given they play literally first match of the day up against a Tatchin crew, and they've had very little practice over the last couple of days by getting stuck at the airport for so long. So yeah, I don't know, if this tournament goes badly for some of these top teams, people are going to say Mickey Mouse tourney, it is what it is. Also got to mention this of Attach, right? I don't know who this was, actually. I wasn't there to see, unfortunately. But Attach says, a COD pro ran onto the field at Fenway, and now we're banned from going to see the field. You can't take gamers anywhere. So I don't know what's going on here, right? And Bryce is like, you've got to be joking me right now. I wanted to go there and have a look at the venue. And, Attach is like, I already saw it, so I don't really care anymore. These guys are so annoyed about it. Well, maybe we got trolled. This is the thing. Attach is always, he does like to troll a fair bit on Twitter. So maybe this is actually not fully true. And if it is true, which gamer do you think is the culprit for this one? I'll definitely intrigue your thoughts on that one in the comment section below. Let's talk about the matches then today. So Los Angeles Thieves, they played the Green Wall last game of the day. Huge game, of course, because, yeah, LA Thieves haven't looked so good so far. I think OpTic are a better team right now, but LA Thieves against OpTic is always a banger. LA Thieves always seem to bring their A game whenever they play OpTic, regardless of how good or bad they might be at that particular moment in time. There's also only 5 players ever that have won the second tournament in the year in more than one season, those being, of course, the OpTic Dynasty team, and then Gunless here as well in Infinite Warfare and Black Ops 4. There's quite a few kind of active players that have still won one, so if any of these guys win this weekend, either, you know, Arcitys, Accuracy, Kenny, the FaZe guys, of course, Major and Priester, formerly of FaZe back in Modern Warfare 2019, even though, you know, that season was a bit sketchy anyway, to be fair, and then I guess some of the Toronto and now Minnesota guys on the Toronto team back in Cold War, they also count to a certain degree, and then, of course, Los Angeles Guerrillas last year, that won at last year's Major 2, even though that entire team is nowhere to be found on their current starting lineup anyway. So let's talk about the prediction. So Reverse Sweep come out with this last night. This was their entire bracket right here. They had Toronto winning the finals, FaZe in second again. Then they had, I think, Subliners third and OpTic fourth, right? So I think this is probably about, you know, there's nothing crazy in this bracket, to be honest. It's probably what a lot of people expect to happen here, for those top 4 teams to be the top 4 teams in the tournament, and for it to be OpTic Subliners and, you know, Subliners Ultra and this type of stuff all the way through the bracket. So no crazy upsets, but this is probably what we might expect to happen. The reality is there's always upsets here, right? And we're just going to talk about game 1 to start, or day 1 to start. New York Subliners versus Minnesota Rokkr. As I say, Subliners should be favorites here, but just because they've had difficult practice, I think the series is very interesting, especially if Rokkr can take it to a game 5. Boston, Atlanta, like, I don't know what we're going to get out of FaZe nowadays. They seem such an unpredictable team. Sometimes they're just going to smoke people, sometimes not. I think I'm going to take FaZe. I think I'm just going to take the favorites today, to be honest, and then maybe we'll pick some sort of losers bracket upset tomorrow. Then Toronto, LAG. I imagine a similar story here to what happened online. I think LAG have a couple of good maps that Toronto will probably get out of the map pool, and then they should, like, I think, honestly, I know a lot of people are picking Toronto to win this tournament, but I would say out of all the teams, they might be the most likely right now. They're looking incredibly polished and just good in all the game modes. I think they're in a really strong position. And then OpTic versus Thieves. Can we see that kind of 200 IQ Shotzzy play that they're going to need to pull out? Because Thieves, yeah, lately they haven't been performing so well, but if OpTic win this comfortably, that'll be very impressive for their weekends, because Thieves are never an easy team to beat, especially at a LAN environment. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.